Hello everybody and welcome back to another Oscar predictions video. It has been a very long time since I've done this. I am well aware I was supposed to do one back in June, but for whatever reason things got busy. It I gotta be honest, things got very hectic and I just didn't have time. I had a lot of stuff going on. I was under a lot of stress, but that's I really do want to try to be more consistent with not only Oscar predictions, but with Pixels to Pictures and with other things that I work on in my life because consistency is the best way to ensure people care about the content that you put out into the world. Um, Now, with that said, a lot of things have changed, and I will be very honest with you. This video probably won't be that long. I say this at the beginning, but then who knows how long it'll actually be. Because I don't know how long I'm going to actually talk about these categories. But I will show you what my predictions are, and you can always pause them and take a look. So without any further ado, let's begin with Best Documentary Feature. Now, I have Fire of Love in the number one spot because from everything I've heard, that is the film to beat this year, which means there's a very good chance it won't get nominated. Because that's often how these things work. Um, there are a lot of very interesting documentaries. I'll admit it's been a while since I put this particular category together, but I do certainly see. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting year for this category, and with so many really heavy real world topics out there in the news, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see which subject matters Oscar voters are more drawn to. I know Fire of Love largely relates to climate change, but there's also plenty of stuff here about gun violence and plenty of stuff here about very other serious conditions. 3 minutes is about the Holocaust, but it's been a while since we've awarded a Holocaust one. That's I'm not predicting that to get on, but there are a lot of interesting documentaries, and I'm sure there's a bunch of others that I haven't heard of. But that's all you need to know about that category for now. When it comes to Best International Feature, that's where things get a bit interesting because Broker and Decision to Leave are both from South Korea, and both have gotten strong reviews, but I don't know if. I think Broker is the one with the stronger appeal, but I don't know if either one is going to be getting a Best Picture nomination. Close, which was a big movie at Cannes, that is the one I currently have in the number one position. Although I want to emphasize, I don't know if it's actually getting a Best Picture nomination. I these year typically one or more of these movies does really well above the line outside of international feature. We're seeing that more and more and more, and I just don't think that's going to be this year. I mean, no. I think there probably will be one that we just don't know because it's hard to predict that ahead of time. I do feel good about Official Competition because from everything I've heard, that is a very awards-friendly movie, and it that deals with the pressures of awards season. I also feel very good about RRR because that one has really blown up in a way that surprised a lot of people. So I think I can count on that being a surprise nominee. Best Animated Feature. Now, this one is really interesting. Um, I have taken Lightyear out of the top 5 because those reviews were not good, and I really feel like a lot of people are deeming the film a failure largely. And it's interesting because with Lightyear failing, Strange World on the horizon, but we don't really know a lot about it, and something about it just doesn't feel like it's gonna hit, like it's gonna be a big deal, but I could be proven wrong. And then Turning Red, which is great and a lot of people do love, but the fact that it came out so early, I find it difficult to imagine that it's going to hold on to the frontrunner position the whole season long. So the movie I have as the frontrunner is Del Toro's Pinocchio. I was initially very hesitant about this movie, but there was a recent article where Del Toro gave an interview about the film and what is going to make it different from previous Pinocchio adaptations, and it did seem really intriguing to me. So, plus, Del Toro is really widely loved, as evidenced by the fact that Nightmare Alley just barely got a Best Picture nomination last year. Also, this, as of right now, this is an animated film that I can actually see getting in places outside of animated feature, which we'll get to. Still very intrigued about My Father's Dragon. If that ends up being the one to get Cartoon Saloon and well overdue Oscar, then more power to it. And then The Sea Beast, which just came out and has gotten some really, really strong reviews, I have in the number 5 position for now. Wendell and Wild, supposedly we're getting that this year, but I don't know. And then I'm losing confidence in Marcel the Shell, even though it's gotten a lot of strong word of mouth. I just don't. I don't think they'll classify it as animated. I think there's too much live action in it. But I have made up for it by including that in a couple of other categories. You'll see what I mean as I go along. Best Sound. So I still have Avatar 2 in the number 1 position. I have added Top Gun Maverick. Uh, this this was one that was getting a lot of hype, and it's become a very, very big movie, and I think it's gonna get nominated here, if nowhere else, but we'll talk about that movie's chances in other categories later. The Woman King is a film we just got a trailer for pretty recently, and I gotta be honest, I'm not 100% sure what to think, because the trailer is building it up as more of an action film than an awards film. Now, that's not to say action movies can't do well in Best Picture, but it is not exactly what I was expecting. It's not more of an action film than a traditional awardsy drama. So I still have high hope for this to do well. I know a lot of people are anticipating this movie quite a bit, but I no longer have it as the de facto Best Picture winner. I think it could do very well, but I'm sort of crossing my fingers a little bit here. Optimistic, but cautiously so. And then Everything Everywhere and Babylon. Everything else, I don't really know much. I suppose this is a good time of setting to mention 13 Lives. We got a trailer for that one too. Very, very curious about it because it looks exactly like the documentary that just came out a year ago, The Rescue. And if people compare it negatively to that documentary, then it probably isn't going to do very well. But I could see a world where it gets a surprising amount of attention. And then Bullet Train I threw on there just because it would be a random fun sound nomination. Best Song. I believe I have moved the song from Top Gun into the number 1 spot. Is that correct? Sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble here. Yes, Hold My Hand, number 1 spot. And there is a song from The Woman King that, from what I understand, Lebo M is responsible for it. And outside of that, I don't really know. Okay, there's an original song from Elvis that could contend. Rod Dahl's Matilda the Musical, we know is going to have original music in it, and there's definitely been some talk about that. And of course, Turning Red as Nobody Like You, which I will admit has sort of grown on me the more time has gone on. And then outside of that, I'm kind of at a loss for words. I don't even know if Marcel the Shell has a song. If anyone has seen the film, please let me know. I know that Everything Everywhere has a song, and maybe if they really love the movie, they'll go for it. Where the Crawdads Sing has a Taylor Swift song, but no one seems to really like the movie, but sometimes just the artist involvement is enough. And then 13 probably is going to have a song, but I don't know how big that movie's going to be, and Pinocchio could have a song. It's really tricky, because I again, we could find out tomorrow that, oh, Killers of the Flower Moon has a song, and then that immediately shoots to the top. We don't know a whole lot about these songs, even though we are finding out more, and the top 5 do seem like safe bets. I will say I took out Disenchanted because from what I understand, that movie is going to be a Disney Plus exclusive, and so it won't be eligible for song, which is really confusing to me, and apparently because Chip and Dale, that movie, was recently nominated for Best TV Movie, even though by all accounts and purposes it is a movie, and that whole situation is worth another video. There's so much to talk about there. But let's just move on and talk about Best Original Score. Now, okay, very last minute change. I made this just before making this video. The Fablemans has now moved into the number one position, and Empire of Light is now number two. For a long time, I was under the impression that Empire of Light was a Thomas Newman score, and that this would be his chance to finally get an Academy Award. But oh no, it looks like it's being done by Trent Reznor and Trent Reznor and Ross. Is that correct? I feel like I'm. If I'm saying that wrong, I'll add it like a little note. But the the guys who did Social Network and Mank and Soul, who, and I want to be very clear, very talented composers, and I'm sure the score for this movie will be great, but come on. We were so close to being able to get Thomas Newman a freaking Oscar. And maybe he has another movie coming out this year that will surprise anyone. Maybe that White Bird Wonder movie I think he's got. But I'll put Fablemans at number one for now because this is a very big Spielberg movie, and maybe they're going to be in the mood to give John Williams one more Oscar. Uh, I really don't know outside of that. Oh, Pinocchio I know is Desplat, so definitely marking that one down just in case. But they don't always name check Desplat. They didn't for French Dispatch. They didn't for what was the one with George Clooney? Midnight Sky. So we really don't know. Uh, some of these we know the composers for. I think there's a couple that we don't, but there's definitely a lot of talk. The top five makes sense to me for now. But let's move on to best visual effects. And this category is interesting because it seems like we know what most of the nominees are going to be at this point. I think Avatar makes sense as the winner. Top Gun makes sense. Batman makes sense. And then Everything Everywhere. I know not everybody has it, but I think the fact that that movie is going to be big across the board, and the fact that the effects team was so small, it had such a small budget, and they still managed to make the effects look as good as they did, I think that's going to compel them to give it a nomination. And then I have 13 Lives in the last slot. Um, I think it's interesting if that's the lineup. It's going to be an interesting variety of effects. And here's the thing: I don't think it's impossible that Pinocchio gets on because we saw in 2016 Kubo and the Two Strings got on. They're not entirely against nominating animated films if it's stop motion and the stop motion effects blend with CGI effects. So, and if Pinocchio ends up being this very big visual spectacle, which some of the images have suggested it could be, I wouldn't entirely rule it out. I'm not bold enough as to actually predict it, but I can't say. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there into the universe that that might happen. And next up, we have Best Makeup and Hairstyling. And it looks like the top five in this category hasn't really changed that much, but I have added some stuff to the bottom five for potential stuff to get on. I honestly don't even really need to know what to say at this point. There haven't been that many big changes, but the stuff in the bottom five, who knows? Who knows? I believe I'm including Borderlands there just as a wish fulfillment because, as you may be able to guess from my other series, I have a bit of a fascination with film adaptations of video games, and I'm waiting till the day when one becomes the first one to receive an Oscar nomination. It could happen. It could happen. A lot of interesting talent involved in that movie. But I don't think there's much more to talk about in this category, so let's move on to costume design. Okay, so the only big thing to say is that Living is a movie with Bill Nighy, and the costume designer is Colleen Atwood, and I don't know what it is. It just seems like this could be sometimes, especially in the craft categories, a movie gets nominated because they just want to nominate the person. And Colleen Atwood tends to get nominated for almost everything she does. So maybe this is just, oh, Colleen Atwood had another movie. Oh, well, everyone in the costume designers branch is going to be sure to watch that. even if the movie is not the best received overall. I wouldn't entirely write out Matilda. I have a sneaking suspicion that could do something, but maybe again that might just be wish fulfillment because I'm a big Roald Dahl fan. Um, and outside of that, there's not much else. I have Babylon in the number one slot for now, but I think Elvis and The Woman King are gonna be contenders. Now, in the category of best production design, Babylon still number one, Old Hollywood, Woman King, Avatar, and yeah, it's the same top five. I didn't really change this at all. Um, the only thing I did was like lower Don't Worry Darling and mentioning Matilda. Wow, okay, nothing to say about this category, so I will move on. Best cinematography. Please tell me I have something to say about this. Well, okay, so Top Gun Maverick is included in the bottom five. I think that's very possible, but I think it's going to be very tricky. I don't know how much people are going to be really talking about this movie come the end of the year, but it's possible. Let's just keep an eye on how many nominations it's getting overall with the critics and the indie groups. Avatar could definitely get on though. Yeah, Empire of Light, by the way, we know is going to be Roger Deakins, and let's get him another Oscar. He already has two, but a third one can't hurt. He already got Lubeski 3. Okay, so not much to say about that. I feel like I'm rushing through that. I always do this. The middle tech categories I rush through, but it's mostly movies that I've already mentioned at this point. Is there anything to say with best film editing? A lot of people have Top Gun Maverick. I don't. I have it just outside the top five for reasons that I will get to in a little bit. I want to wait till Best Picture to talk about why I might be underestimating Top Gun Maverick as opposed to a lot of other movies that people are talking about. Now, mention of 13 Lives and Women Talking. Still think Everything Everywhere is taking this in a walk. This is going to be like the easiest landslide vote, period. Like, the one thing that everyone's going out of their mind, I mean, people are talking about that movie, of course, but the editing in particular is the big draw of the film, it feels like. So, surely that's got to get some mentions. And then, okay, I think there's some interesting stuff to be said about the screenplay categories. I think that most of the movies I'm really interested in this year are in original, but there are some intriguing ones in adapted. Um, I So you will notice I have Marcel the Shell in at number 8. There is a part of me that has this sense that that could be Logan feels like a weird comparison, but the slightly out there movie that you wouldn't think would be a screenplay nominee, but it just has the support it needs to get on. So definitely I'm keeping an eye on that. But yeah, The Whale is another one I'm keeping an eye on because I don't know, I feel like the actors are going to be a lot of the focus with that film. I feel like there's going to be a lot of attention on it, and it might be enough to get the nomination. Yeah, Till is one that a lot of people have their eyes on. I don't know if I necessarily buy that there's enough talent, but the story, the talent behind the scenes is enough to immediately assure me that's going to be a contender. But the story definitely could be a contender. Like, I'm not going to write it out entirely, but keeping my eye on that one. Most of these movies, you probably know what they are. I will say, She Said is lower than it was. And the reason for that, I'll get into it in picture, but having seen the trailer for that film, I don't know how much of a contender it's going to be. I really thought it was going to be a big one, but something about that trailer did not instill me with a ton of confidence. Now, what's in the original screenplay category? I have moved Everything Everywhere to the number 1 position. I don't know if it's necessarily going to win, but it would make a certain amount of sense because Best Original Screenplay does often tend to go to the most original screenplay, and you're going to get a lot of originality in that film. Okay, mention of After Sun, this movie that was a big, big, big deal at Cannes, and my gut is telling me to keep an eye out for that movie. Oh, also, Triangle of Sadness. I know a lot of people had that down for original screenplay. I have it just missing, but I think it could still be a very big contender. No. I have it could definitely get on, but I don't know. I don't think it's gonna get in picture, so it would be a lone screenplay sort of thing. But again, I don't know. Keep an eye on that one. I also have Rustin, which is a movie I'll talk about more for Best Picture. But let's get to the acting categories now. So, Michelle Williams, Lily Gladstone, Thusa Madhu, those three seem like very safe bets. And then I have Sadie Sink for The Whale. Now, she was the talk of the town with the most recent season of Stranger Things. And from what I understand, she has a very Beatty role in The Whale. So I think that could be a big sign for her. Now, we also have Stephanie Sue and Everything Everywhere that definitely could be getting a lot of attention. But I think that we saw this last year with Best Actress. When there's more than one young ingenue available to nominate, they tend to just gravitate towards one or split the difference with both. And I think Sadie Sink, more attention is going to be on her because she's a bit more of an established name because of Stranger Things. But then again, Stephanie Sue, if people really love Everything Everywhere, and I believe they do, like her performance is a very big part of that film. So I do have Laura Dern in the fifth slot, and everyone else I don't really know. At this point, I have seen Cha Cha Real Smooth, and I think Dakota Johnson feasibly could get nominated for that. But I feel like people are already kind of forgetting about that movie. Like, that movie was the talk of the town when it premiered at Sundance because there wasn't a whole lot of big audience success stories, and that was one of them. But I think once it actually premiered, nobody's really talking about it. And I know people are trying to make the Coda similarities of, oh, that also won audience prize at Sundance and also premiered early. But I just don't feel like there's a ton of passion behind this particular movie. Even though it's a perfectly fine film and I could see Johnson get on, I do feel like she's going to get forgotten as the season goes on. But she's very good in the film, and I hope she gets like a couple of critics' mentions. Next up, we have Best Supporting Actor. And this, okay, it's going to get pretty interesting here because I still have Jesse Plemons in at number one, Brad Pitt, Robert De Niro. I don't exactly know how far they're going to go, but I think it. Okay, all three of them seem like safe bets for now. I have Paul Dano over Seth Rogen as the Fabelman's person to get in. I think it could be really close between the two of them. I don't know if we'll really know which is the bigger performance until we see the film, but Paul Dano is certainly overdue for a nomination. And then Ke Huy Quan I now have getting in because there's been a lot of talk about his performance in particular and his story where he was a child actor who didn't work for a very long time because he couldn't find the right roles. And then everyone else, these are all sort of names that I've mentioned before. I don't know how well Banshees of Inisherin is going to do overall, but I just have this sneaking suspicion about Farrell's performance. And then Zen McGrath supposedly has a very big role in The Sun. Everyone else, I just don't know. But the top five do make a certain amount of sense to me. Now, when it comes to the category of lead actress, now I currently have Michelle Yeoh in first place. This is one of those situations where I don't know if she's actually the person with the best chances of winning, but I feel like she's safe for a nomination. Also safe for nomination is Olivia Colman, because she's Olivia Colman and she gets on every year nowadays. And then Margot Robbie, Viola Davis, Cate Blanchett, these all seem like gimmies. And Carey Mulligan just moved out of the top five. The others I think are definitely still on the table. And I know I've heard a lot of buzz about Danielle Deadwyler in particular, but I'm sort of waiting until people have seen that film to know if the buzz on that is actually real or if it's just hype. I have moved Viola Davis down quite a bit because, judging from the trailer, I don't think that's going to be quite the type of movie that gets her a win. But if she plays her cards right, she could definitely still get nominated for it, especially if the movie itself is big. Now, looking at Best Actor. So I have made the decision to move Coleman Domingo into the number one position for now for Rustin. That's another one that's been getting a lot of buzz around it, and at first I wasn't quite sure what to feel about it, but then I was like, you know what? This could be a big role for him. I mean, Domingo is an actor that people do really like. He was recently opposite Chadwick Boseman and Viola Davis in Ma Rainey, and this could be a very, very big deal. And I'm going to be optimistic here because I'm not really sure who else to pick. I mean, DiCaprio, maybe he could win another one, but we don't really know if it's that kind of role at this point. And then Brendan Fraser, a lot of eyes are on him for this to be the one that gives him an Oscar, but I don't know if it's going to be the thing to take him all the way. Now, a lot of people do say, "Oh, this is Jackman's year. This is Jackman's year," because it's now The Son. I just don't know. The Father was one of my favorite films of 2020, so I don't want to doubt this, but I do kind of have this question of can lightning really strike twice? And I think the big thing with The Father was if you went in not knowing what that movie was going to be, it was such a shock to discover what it actually was. And The Son, from what I understand, does not have the same kind of mind blowing storytelling ideas of telling it from the point of view of this person with dementia and making this really confusing horror film, essentially. Uh, but the source material is sad and effective, and are people just going to think of this as a less effective version of The Father? Also, Hugh Jackman, with everything going on with the music, man, not everyone is the biggest fan of him. So I don't know how far this is gonna go. But I have him in number 4 for now. And at number 5 is Austin Butler for Elvis, who has gotten rave reviews for that performance, and it does make sense given the type of character he's playing. So I do think he's definitely in the conversation, but the fact that it is an early year release and the fact that the movie is very much a showcase for the costumes and production design, it could end up overshadowing him. Plus, he's such a young, fresh face who hasn't really been in the awards conversation for anything prior to this. So it's going to be tight. I have him at number 5 for now. That seems like a good place to have him, but I don't know. Now, one person that I added at the very, very last minute was Paul Mescal for After Sun. I don't have After Sun everywhere, but if the movie really is that effective, then this could be a place for him to show up. And then I have Viggo Mortensen at number 8. I don't really know how far that's going to go, but maybe the movie's going to be a big contender, and maybe it can drag him along with it. I don't know. I feel like all the most interesting movies this year are about women, so there's a little bit less for the men to do, which some would say that in itself is refreshing, but it does leave this category feeling a bit empty, at least from where we stand right now. Moving on to Best Director. Now, this is what's really crazy, okay? Because I have Daniels at number 1, and I'll get to Everything Everywhere in Picture for a minute. But I feel like Daniels are a lock to get on because of the insane amount of hype that their movie has generated. And then you have Spielberg, and then you have Scorsese, and then you have Chazelle, and all three of them feel like check, check, check. Of course they're getting on because of who they are and because of what their movies are about. Like, all three of those films feel like easy movies to get nominated, even though we haven't seen any of them yet. And there is a small part of me that is wondering if, when we do see these movies, one of them is going to disappoint and not be the film we think it is. But at this point, it just makes sense to pencil them all in. And that means 4 out of 5 directors in this lineup are locked. That means 4 slots are filled. And it can't be this easy because we're so far out. But Daniels, Spielberg, Scorsese, Chazelle makes sense. And so then the question is, who's number 5? And I would like it to be a woman. I think we've seen a lot of female directors really rising in the past couple of years with 2 back-to-back female winners. And so Gina Prince Bythewood makes the most sense for me for the last slot, but it could also very well be Sarah Polley, or Sam Mendes, or Florian Zeller, or Todd Field, or even James Cameron. Like, there are a lot of contenders here, but it's just really difficult to get a gauge on it now because 4 of them feel like locks, and they probably aren't. One of them has to go, and Gina Prince Bythewood is just who I have there. Because I don't want it to feel like just tokenism. I don't want it to feel like, and here's our token woman in the category. I want it to feel like it's earned. And a lot of great female directors have really fought to earn their place. And so I hope, if this category does end up being those 4 that I mentioned and Gina Prince Bythewood or a different woman, I hope it doesn't feel like tokenism. I hope it feels like a genuinely earned spot in the race. But what I really want to talk about is Best Picture. Yes, I did it. I put Everything Everywhere All at Once in the number 1 position for Best Picture as of right now. And the Oscar expert did this too, so I'm sort of pointing the blame at him. Oscar expert and Brother Bro made me think it was okay to put Everything Everywhere in the number 1 spot. The sheer amount of passion that has been surrounding this movie that has not gone away. Like, people are obsessed with this movie. And I really do feel like it means something. Yes, content-wise, this would be a very, very unusual Best Picture winner. But I think this movie has the passion it needs to carry it over that finish line. The Academy loves a David versus Goliath story. And right now, Everything Everywhere is in a good position to be that David. However, the passion is so intense that I think there is a danger of it becoming the Goliath. There is a danger of it overperforming on nomination day, and people go, well, that's definitely winning, and then it doesn't happen. Because I have seen backlash against it. I have seen backlash being like, it's too much, it's too confusing, it's too weird, it's sensory overload the movie. And I want to stress that, like, those could hurt it. But also, I do think the passion is so strong that it could go the distance. It could get there at the end of the day. Whether or not it will, I don't know. But at this point, I think it's a very safe bet to say it's getting the nomination. Now, and then 2, 3, 4, Fabelmans, Kills of the Flower Moon, Babylon, those make sense. Woman King, we're just assuming that gets on. I'm hoping it gets on. Sorry, I'm tired. It is interesting because you have those 5, then I have Empire of Light at 6, and then everything after that is just kind of, I guess. Like, I don't really know. Like, okay, Todd Field, After Sun, big Sundance player, Cannes player, The Sun, I guess, Rustin, I guess. I don't actually know what gets all 10 slots. I feel very confident in that top 6, that these are all going to be contenders. And one movie that I felt pretty confident in a while ago was She Said, but that trailer just looked so generic, and like, it just trying to be an awards movie without a ton of real. And there's a lot of good movies that have really bad trailers, and this could be one of them. But I don't know. I think there's potential the movie could be better than the trailer's making it out to look, but the trailer just looks so by the numbers and so generic, and I it's a shame because I wanted to go all the way. I also have Women Talking as potentially the one to do slightly better than She Said, but I don't know much about that either. And it would be weird if The Woman King and Women Talking, two movies with like similar-ish titles, both get on. And I guess I need to address the real elephant in the room, Top Gun Maverick at number 15. I have heard so many people say, don't write this off. This could get a Best Picture nomination. And I heard that in the lead up to when I saw the movie, and I'm like, it sounds weird, but I'm not going to knock it until I see the movie. And then I see the movie, and I'm like, that was good. I liked it. But that is not something that needs to get a Best Picture nomination. And the fact that that conversation has kept going, like, oh, it made a lot of money, people really like it, and isn't that enough? Well, it's not enough if you're an animated movie. Like, I'm sorry, I don't want to harp on that, but it feels like you will nominate any live action movie these days. You're not even going to consider something like Turning Red. Like, imagine if I talked about Turning Red being a Best Picture nominee. You'd all call me crazy. But Top Gun Maverick, oh, it's a movie that people like, and it made money. And I wanted to put it number 15 just because, yes, it could happen. Like, Ford v Ferrari is the sort of same type of movie, and also, like, Mad Max Fury Road. This is not as good as that, but I like legacy sequel type thing. Uh, Also, it did make a lot of money. I, I don't want it. I mean, it's not a bad movie, but it just doesn't feel like something that's worthy of a Best Picture slot to me. And if it gets on, I'm not going to be that upset. But it's just, come on, there's better stuff you can go for. And I do want to take this opportunity to mention Bardo, which is the Alejandro Inarritu film that everybody seems to be predicting, and I'm still holding out on it. And this could be the same thing that happened with West Side Story, where I just said it's not going to happen, and it happened. But, I mean, one of the first things that you can see when you look this movie up is Inarritu repeatedly ignored all COVID safety protocols, and multiple crew members lost their lives because of that. Like, it's kind of crazy to me how so many Oscar predictors seem to be ignoring that or have never heard it. Hopefully, we get the word out. Hopefully, people hear about that before the film. When the film is coming out and they're doing interviews, that's a question that's going to be asked. I hope. Like, we're not going to just let this slide because we like him as a filmmaker, right? Okay, so I feel like I've said more than enough at this point. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to have another Pixel Pictures up pretty soon, and I will see you then. Bye.